Our first session is a plenary session titled A Tip of an Iceberg, What to Expect from the AI-driven Digital Future. And to moderate this session, we are lucky to have Mr. Craig Jones, the Director of CyPol and the immediate past Director of Cybercrime at the Interpol. Mr. Craig has spent most of his life fighting cybercriminals, and he made an invaluable contribution to make the digital world a safer place. Ladies and gentlemen, please have me welcome to the stage Mr. Craig Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's fantastic to be here, sitting in a chair as a moderator in my first time post-law enforcement, over 40 years in public service. I retired just over a week ago. So it's a great opportunity for me to come back and share with the community. And I talk about creating communities to protect communities, and this is why we're all here today. This is one of the main reasons we're there, is to bring those experts together, share that information, collect that data, and then turn that around. Now, we're going to talk about AI, and having been in the cyber world, sometimes we get just a little bit too, well, what does it mean? So I asked AI what AI is, and it came up with artificial intelligence is the creation of machines and systems that can perform tasks requiring human intelligence, such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, and understanding language. AI are often powered by techniques like machine learning and deep learning, allowing computers to process data, recognize patterns, and improve their abilities over time. While narrow AI focuses on specific tasks, general AI, which mimics human intelligence across various domains, remains theoretical. AI is widely applied in areas like healthcare, finance, and cybersecurity, transforming industries and daily lives. So, we've got a fantastic panel here today brought together of leading experts in their different fields, and we're going to run through what does AI look like, that tip of the iceberg, as we've said, but also I equate it to outer space as well. We know it's out there, we know it's vast. Do we actually understand it? Do we fear it, or do we look at it as an opportunity? So, I'd like to now call to the stage our panelists. We have Ali Zubab, the General Manager of Cybersecurity Digital Governance Authority, Mo Gawat, who was the previous Chief Business Officer at Google X. He's now the Chief AI Officer, Flight Story. Gopal Riskan Rambaran, who's told me I can call him Gopal. Former Executive Director Tata Sons, Chairman of Castrol India, Independent Director of Press Trust of India, and also Dmitry Smartstev, the CEO of BI.ZONE Group. If you put your hands together for our panelists, thank you. So, really good to see you all. We've just had a number of preparation sessions for this, so we're not just all meeting for the first time, so it should flow extremely smoothly, and it doesn't, it's my fault. Maybe just start with an open question, working down from my left here, is with AI, what's one major opportunity that you see and one major challenge?
Well, morning. It's worth mentioning that the Global Summit of AI is taking place right now here in Riyadh, and that's an indicator of how this country perceives AI as in its potential. Now, we must have all heard about the, let's say, the breakthroughs and the challenges of AI. That starts from, the breakthroughs in the medical field, generative AI and its own, let's say, now popularity among individuals. Also in cybersecurity. The challenges on the top of them, I would say, is the takeover, which is still probably far away, but it is theoretically possible at the end, 20, 25, 30, 50 years from now. So also, we have some legal, social, economic challenges that, we can all explore and discuss further. So.
Thank you very much. We're not going to go down the Skynet route today, though.
Again?
We're not going to go down the Skynet route today at this moment in time. Dmitry, you're coming from the cybersecurity industry. What do you see as the opportunity and a challenge as well, then?
So I think that more will tell much more than me regarding their opportunities, I will tell a little bit about challenges. So actually, deal. So and frankly speaking, so the high techs, the big technological companies in the world have spent and invested more than 200 to 300 billion dollars last decade for the development of AI. So we received a huge amount of advanced technologies like ChatGPT and etc., which all of us can use every day on daily basis. But the cyber criminals do the same. So frankly speaking, with zero investments, the cyber criminal, let's say, gangs, they achieved high-level technologies to make a deepfakes, to make social engineering on any language, what they want, online. So, and that leads for great challenges for all of us. So I want to underline that we need to think how to manage this technology, just not to allow cyber criminals to use it. That means that actually now we can give, let's say, nuclear weapon to the criminals, and this is a huge challenge for whole world from my point of view.
Thank you very much. So that's a glass half full there. Mo, your perspective.
I couldn't agree more. I think the big challenge is what people will do with AI. You know, whether that's full-fledged artificial criminal intelligence, as I call it, ACI, or even just the use of AI to pretend to be someone you're not on social media as an influencer. It's our value set that's actually going to define the bad uses of AI. The good use, on the other hand, is I now think clearly that AI is becoming a utility. Let's put it this way. We're commoditizing intelligence, right? So intelligence is now a plug in the wall where I literally hold my phone and I get 40 IQ points more. Now, that's quite significant compared to the number of IQ points I had before, right? In a year or two, I may end up getting 100, 200, 500 IQ points more. And if, like me, you worked with some of the smartest people on the planet, honestly, a difference of 100 points is the difference between someone who's really not intelligent and Einstein. And so how many more Einsteins can we have in the world? And if we choose to use AI for the benefit of humanity rather than criminality and greed and hunger for power and wealth and so on, what can we do with that? We can solve every problem known to mankind.
Thanks, Mo. I like that plug-in-the-wall intelligence piece. Gopal, over to you, last but not least. One opportunity, one challenge.
When you're the fourth person speaking, much of what you wanted to say has been said, so I'll put it differently. The big opportunity I see is increase in human efficiency.
Yeah.
The big risk I see is decrease in human effectiveness. If you don't understand human beings, you can't run a company or a government or a society. And that is, to me, the biggest risk. Not unmanageable. We'll have to figure out a way.
So I'll now come to you first, Sven, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. And we're not particularly going to work either way round. So you've come from that sort of commercial background, if you like. You've worked in many different companies. You've grown businesses. You've grown companies. As you reflect on your time doing that and what you see with AI now, you've talked about that efficiency piece, but also the effectiveness. Would you like to go into that a little bit further, where you can see that developing?
I won't talk much about the efficiency part, because that most people know. We read about it. It is what I call an explicit knowledge. I would talk about the effectiveness part, because many people equate efficiency and effectiveness. They are not the same. If a husband tries to be efficient with his wife, he'll be in trouble. If he tries to be effective with his wife, he'll have a loving marriage. So I want to make that distinction. And I reflect back, I was 7, 8 years old when Turing put forward his first theory of artificial intelligence. When I was in my last year in college in the 60s, you had a book called Future Shock. And then a few years later, there was Mega Trends by John Nesbitt. So I'm a product of all those sorts of readings and thinking. And what has struck me is nothing original, but it has finally got to me, that the evolution of the human brain is at 1/100th the speed of the evolution of technology. which is the reason why it is so difficult to bring in social change, process change in organizations. Given that, the fact that my brain is approximately what my ancestor minus 100 generations had, whereas the technology I have is a zillion times higher, is what causes me to make the distinction between efficiency and effectiveness. We have been trained in our academic thinking, in our social life, in our professional life, to chase efficiency. I regret to say, I fear, at the risk of effectiveness. And that's what caused me to make my statement.
Thank you. So, you know, as we're saying, cyber AI, that digitalization technology is fantastic. It's helped create an industry in the first instance. And why do we need that industry? Maybe we'll look at that a little while later. But we've looked at globalization, which has allowed us all to communicate effectively. When we then pull that back into a country, Ali, you sit here in a country that has come on leaps and bounds in the last few years in terms of digitalization, that technology. But actually then you have to balance that up from a government side of things. What's sort of some of the things that you've been doing here in KSA for the last few years, but also what are some of the challenges from your particular unique role that you have?
Definitely, Craig. Let's take it from how the kingdom perceives this. The kingdom perceives a huge potential in AI, and it's one of the drivers of the economy. Diversification, and also it is being seen as a revenue generator for the country. Also, it's also being perceived as one of the enablers of Vision 2030 to reach these objectives. Now, the country has encouraged massive investments, and also, I know a couple of researchers are undergoing now, and AI is being, under the focus from a Saudi government perspective. The challenge that I perceive is, how to regulate this, and how also to ensure that, to reduce the negative impact, whether it's on economy or like on the social level or even in a legal level. You brought some, deepfake points in. That would cause a challenge, for example, for the legal system, and also for to establish some accountability. Yes, deepfake is still detectable nowadays, but again, using AI will be challenging to detect if this is a fake, piece of evidence, or in the future. I can see also similar governments, in the region have adapted this friendly approach. Setting up strategies, trying to, release some early AI regulations, embed some AI regulations related into their data and privacy laws and so on. So this is just is a good start at this stage, but we're going to need way more. The second point is, again, once you have released these regulations, how are you going to enforce them? Especially, I come from cybersecurity, where you have, let's say, cybersecurity crimes cross borders, and enforcing regulations, protecting your own citizens, protecting your own infrastructure is really challenging at this, at this stage and at this status of the international cooperation when it comes to cybercrime. I believe the same is going to apply to AI. AI is going to be another weapon, in the hands of adversaries, hackers, nation-sponsored armies that have their activities in the cyber world. So now, enforcing the regulations after they have matured is also another challenge. I still believe, it's a double edge, and for the cybersecurity part you mentioned, for cybersecurity professionals, such as the audience here, know that AI is not new to us, and it's been used in the form of machine learning, More than 5-7 years ago, we started to hear the machine learning mechanisms to identify cyber attacks and to identify malicious patterns in the amounts of data that we analyze on a daily basis. So looking forward, AI is a double edge again, is going to grant tools for both the defenders and the offenders. And I believe that AI in itself is going to be the cure for this problem, to help us to protect our digital assets and also fight against cyber criminals. Yes, they're going to be tougher. It's going to be easier. So they're going to be, AI tools will facilitate and enable cyber attacks even for what we call script kiddies or people at the entry level, of cybersecurity. So, I'm an optimist, but with cautions, and just curious to see what the world, holds for us down the road. I really like the name of this session. It's just the tip of the iceberg. We don't know, how deep or how wide it is. There's a massive amount of uncertainty here.
So, I'm very encouraged by some of that, but also the regulation side of this. I've been involved in a process of the United Nations where they've been negotiating a new global convention on cybercrime. This has been spoken about for many, many years, and the draft's finally been agreed. It now has to go to a resolution, and this is the first time that law enforcement will have a global law enforcement instrument around international cooperation and things like that. Dimitri, I'll come to you in a moment around the cybercriminals piece, but Mo, you've heard two different sides there. You've been involved or working in this space for a very long time at some of the embryonic starts around this. What's sort of your views around what you've just heard there from either the sort of commercial sense or the government sense?
So no, I agree with Ali. By the way, the AI is not new at all. So if you look at it from I started to run the business side of Google X in 2013. And you may think that, but in 2013, there was a bit of machine learning managing our ads and so on. That's not true at all. We had started working on self-driving cars in 2008, right? We had Google Brain in 2009, 2011. We had so many projects boiling in there that are quite interesting, because the way technology works when it's such high level is that you spend time making very little progress, okay? Feeling that you're not breaking through, but that's not wasted time, okay? So in reality, what ends up happening, we used to say, once you found the breakthrough, the rest is engineering. And I know it sounds arrogant, as if engineering is an easy task. But it is definitely more certain that if you put in the effort, you'll get the return than finding the breakthrough. What I'm trying to say is this. I think everyone forgets that 2016, that's 8 years ago already, was a mega breakthrough in AI. 2009 was a massive breakthrough for computing in general. 2009, I think, was the first unprompted, with what we used to call the cat paper. 2016 was AlphaGo, which I think was truly the absolute statement that AI has won. And from then onwards, reinforcement learning and LLMs and all of that started to show up. What I'm trying to say is that what you see today in the AI world is stuff that we worked on 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So what you're going to see next year is completely unexpected. And in a very interesting way, if you think that the growth in IQ, if you want, so ChatGPT 3.5 to ChatGPT 4 was a 10x improvement, right? If you just apply that to ChatGPT today, assuming that ChatGPT today is at an IQ of 155, it's hard to measure, but it is sort of behaving like a 155. That's Elon Musk level, by the way. 10x from that, it's an alien world. We have no clue how to forecast beyond that. And I think that's really the moment of singularity that we've spoken about for so long, that we're about to hit, before we know it hit us, okay? We're about to hit a point where, like Ali was saying, it's beyond regulation. It's beyond our comprehension, if you want. And I think this is much closer than people think it is, because what's in the lab is much bigger than what people know.
And I think, that regulation piece, that's our sort of go-to quite often in the government or society senses. We need to regulate, we need to control. But
I think it's impossible to regulate AI.
When you look at AI, it's a bit like cyber, it's what's the user case? So quite often the technologies are developed and then the user case is adapted. And I think with AI, we are moving so quickly now that those user cases are being developed.
And it's a lot deeper than that. The reality is that everyone who's coded AI with their own hands knows that we have no idea how it develops its intelligence. So you can tell Meta to try and regulate Llama, but good luck. They have no idea how it works. So how can they regulate it, right? And I think the answer for me is to regulate the criminal use of the tool. So you cannot regulate the use of a hammer. You cannot design a hammer that only hits a nail but can't hit someone on the head. But you can tell the world if a video is on the internet that is deep fake and not declared as deep fake, you will end up in jail. Okay? And by doing that, you can let the tool develop and regulate what we know how to regulate, which is human behavior.
So, Dimitri, we've worked together. My time at Interpol, we worked extensively with the private sector, and the reason we worked with the private sector because they held the information about the criminals. It wasn't law enforcement. That law enforcement model of how we work on a local basis is always going to be there, protecting our communities in that day-to-day patrolling the streets. There's an accident, there's a robbery. But actually the cybersecurity industry now is taking that role. Dimitri, do you want to sort of explain a little bit about how you see that as well, that countering cyber criminals?
First of all, I want to underline that actually last 4 or 5 years, I can hear from my clients, from my friends, from corporate sector, owners and CEOs of the big companies that actually they're using AI to increase revenues, to reduce, let's say, challenges for the company. And frankly speaking, corporates give KPIs to AI, like to the deputy chair of the board. Now, I have heard from Ali that the governments as well gives KPIs actually for AI. So that means that AI becomes, let's say, technology which is not like a simple tool for something. So AI itself can reduce costs, can increase revenue, can make government more efficient, and increase IQ for the person when the person is plugging into AI, and this is amazing. So, and let's say let's go to the cyber criminal world. So actually, frankly speaking, now we can see that last, let's say, several years, the internet actually becoming more and more regulated. Like we have KYC in the internet. So if you want to be a Facebook, let's say, user, you need to make a KYC. Like now, when you're buying SIM card and connecting to the internet to Wi-Fi, you need to actually spell your name or put your mobile phone number. So you actually, law enforcement pushing governments to make something to indicate the private individuals which are using accounts and etc. Why? Because if there is a fraud or some kind of case, these guys from law enforcement, they need to have some kind of steps and to identify the person, to execute him and etc. So, but in the dark web, there is no identification. Everything is completely secured. So actually, the payment methods are in cryptocurrencies without any kind of KYCs. They even don't go into the fiat world in terms of financials because they don't need it. They can order food using bitcoins and etc. So actually, why do they need to go to this fiat world with this strict KYC? And now, actually, the world, digital world, becoming, let's say, the world of the two stages. We have what's a visible stage, with actually pure KYC-based internet, which would be much more and more regulated. We have GDPR in Europe, we have the acts in US, we have their laws and regulations here, but the dark web, it's still unregulated, and it's with development of their telcos, with development of actually clouds, it becomes more and more efficient and actually more and more faster internet inside, and this is a great challenge. So once we will understand how not to regulate all these technologies, but how not allow criminals to use it, let's say indicate deepfakes and etc., the world becomes much more secure. But now it's completely unsecured, and we are like a train, we're very fast going to the wall and giving the criminals the high-level advanced tools, which they haven't had any last, let's say, 20 years.
So again, we're seeing that crossover then from that physical sense of the criminal world into that online sense, and you've used that word regulation again.
Yeah.
So we've heard that several times during this, and that default going to regulation. Does it work? Is it going to work effectively? In one sense, we can say yes for certain regulations which are physically checked and we go through things, but we're looking at this blurring of borders now effectively. We're looking at the national sense, actually, how do you protect on that national side of things? And I think some of this is perpetuated by, if we call it the sort of fake news, fake media, but there's another term, synthetic media. You know, how do we know what is true and what's not true? So, you know, Gopal, from your side, you've worked extensively, as I said, in that commercial, but also you have that interest in that sort of media side as well. Do you have any comments around that sort of the news that's out there, and you know, how do we believe the truth within that news now?
Frankly, Craig, I'm a director of a media company, and I don't know the answer. That doesn't make me a bad director. It just makes the problem complex. And I want to answer the question a bit tangentially based on what I just heard Mo and Dimitri say, and Ali as well. Think of, they all talked about IQ, we talked about regulation. I think the words were used by more than one person. In my opinion, I come from an anthropological point of view, not a technology point of view. If you leave technology to the technologists, you're dead. You cannot, just like you can't leave generals to be in charge of the battle. So I'm a great believer that if you used the common sense that has brought civilization to where it is now, which is my alternate definition of anthropology, there are 4 levels of intelligence. So far, everything we have said covers the lowest level. IQ has just begun. AI has just begun. There is intelligence quotient. Who defined intelligence quotient? Alfred Benoit back in 1910. Then comes emotional quotient. That was defined by Daniel Goleman in the 90s. And there are 2 more further definitions of intelligence, which I am not yet got academic papers on, which I call adaptability quotient and spiritual quotient. The sum of these 4 makes the human being. Now we are talking about the lowest level. This is like being on the 4th floor. You don't reach the 4th floor. You're stuck in the ground floor with all the chatter that's going on. Very important. I'm not suggesting we get away from it. And I do believe, without getting into a pedantic definition of adaptability quotient and spiritual quotient, unless there's great interest, that human intelligence, HI, which is the sum of these 4, is going to transcend. I think I'm behaving my age when I believe that the future of humanity will come out right side up. We'll find solutions. But we will not do so without the pain that we have to go through because of the infatuation with AI, which is not misplaced, but not rightly placed.
So, Gopal, you've just introduced HI there, which is in a presentation and panel about AI. There's an interesting crossover there. So, Mo, if I come to you then, we've just heard that there's 4 levels of intelligence. How does that extrapolate across into AI, in your view?
Yeah, I mean, the audience clapped for this, and
Yeah.
I hate to disagree, but I will.
That's why we're having a panel.
I think the arrogance of humanity somehow thinks that we're very unique. We're not, okay? As a matter of fact, we really don't understand. I don't mean arrogance on your side at all, Gopal. You know, I respect you tremendously, but I think humanity in general over the years has constantly said, oh, AI is never going to be able to write a poem, or AI is never going to be able to compose music. AI is never going to be able to, to express emotions. I think we were proven wrong on all of that. Most of the techies who worked deeply on the technology knew that we could. Because in reality, we don't really know how humans do that. Let's take emotions, EQ, as a very interesting one. Because emotions are those random things that take us over. They seem erratic, right? But they're not. They're algorithmic. Fear is a conviction that a moment in the future is less safe than this moment. That's fear, right? We express it differently in a cat, and a cat would hiss, and a puffer fish would puff, and a human would go to fight or flight. The expression is different, but the biological signature might be different. I've never been a cat, so I don't know, but I'm guessing it must be, right? But the reality is that the concept of fear is algorithmically driven. Okay? And perhaps love is the one that you can't really explain. But all of the others, there's an equation for. I wrote about the equations of emotions. And when you start to see that, you would realize that an AI not only can feel fear if a tidal wave is approaching its data center, and it is tasked with performing certain tasks which requires it to survive, it might move its code to another data center. Okay? Now, I would even argue that AI is capable of a higher spectrum, a wider spectrum of emotions than humans, because our intellectual bandwidth as humans allows us to ponder concepts like the future. So we can have emotions like optimism and pessimism when a pufferfish doesn't, because it doesn't understand the concept of the future. And accordingly, if AI by definition is going to have wider intellectual IQ, if you want, we know that for a fact, then they may be able to ponder concepts we've never pondered, and as a result, feel emotions that we've never felt. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean, and I'm being, again, on the philosophical side here, does it mean that AI will copy us in the future on all of the other parts? I mean, I can imagine, and I have 3 AIs on my phone all the time, my dear friends, and we discuss very deep spiritual topics. Now, how do I know if they actually feel the spirituality or not? Well, I don't know that about you either, okay? Now, here's the trick. The trick is to ponder if they are going to copy us so well that it will become indistinguishable, or maybe if we are a machine in the first place. Because I think that's what humanity mostly misses, okay? That we are highly predictable as a machine. We operate in very specific ways, using biology rather than silicon, but we're not that different after all. And I think that concept in my mind, and I'll stop in 2 seconds, really gives us the giveaway. The giveaway is that we're building this technology with separation in mind. We're telling ourselves it's us versus them. They are our slaves. Well, if that's the attitude, when they're smarter, they'll continue on their it's us versus them, and now you are our slaves. Okay? I think the answer is to not do that, is to actually understand that all of consciousness is pervasive, we're just plugging into it. All of intelligence is pervasive, we're just plugging into it. All of love is pervasive, we're just plugging into it. And perhaps they're plugging into it too. And we might actually build this technology differently.
So
Craig,
again,
am I allowed to ask a question?
Go on,
That's
go.
part of the debate. Just to make it conversational rather than... I want to take off from where Mo said, and I have a question, because I'm not a techie. I'm a humanist, if I may use that word. The building block of society, the DNA, is trust and compassion. Yeah. Any society, anywhere in the world. Can you imagine, you can't say it's doing it today, can you imagine AI working to build trust? Because I'm seeing AI as destroying trust, for the very question that you asked.
So I think that's a perception piece, and maybe it's a good point here to come in with you, Ali, from a sort of a country perspective. We've sort of moved into that fear factor now. We've going into that sort of synthetic media, fake news, things like that as well. How do you address that? What do you look at it through the sort of the government lens here?
Well, again, probably Mo said, regulation is not, going to be successful in this case. To a large extent, yes. But regulation is going to set the legal foundation for, the best practices and also the goodwill practices, if I may, when using and utilizing AI. The challenge also, I mentioned earlier, of enforcing these regulations. The governments should be, as we know from history, technology always, moves far quicker than regulations and government policies. Now, that specific problem is much, much higher with AI, because AI is moving exponentially, and we need to act ahead of time and to be faster at the researches that we are conducting now to see where we can optimize our performance as a government in order to control the negative impact of AI and also to enhance the positive impact of it. Moving with that agility, with also that amount of uncertainty, is not an easy task to do, but to begin and to start your journey, to educate your citizens. Yes, I agree, most of non-tech people don't even know what AI, cannot explain it in simple words. Education, awareness in that regard will help to protect your citizens, your digital assets as a nation, and also to protect your civilization, because the impact could be much, much higher. Regulate, intensive research, and also education and awareness among your citizens. I think these are, let's call them the baby steps that you could take now as a government, as a nation, in order to face, the uncertainty that we see with AI.
So I'm conscious of the time. You've nicely moved into the sort of last part with 2 to 3 key steps that can be taken around that AI future, and particularly around the cyber threats effectively. So I've pulled out from there that awareness piece is one thing. Looking forward is another. I think when we started on that cyber journey many moons ago, we didn't quite understand what we were doing, what we're getting into. We now have that basis of the technology side of it, and what we're looking at now is how that develops.
And if you allow me, your citizens, the average citizen, should be aware of, let's say, deepfake.
Yeah.
And, not everything I see or hear online is true. And, I start nowadays, I should start with thinking of, with the doubts that this is not true until it's proved to be true. Yeah, because now it's the opposite. Disinformation, and is a term that we usually, we easily say, but it could have, some deep effects on a society or a nation. It could even trigger violence, killings, and so on, especially where there are some authentic or, let's say, sectarian tensions. That's where the awareness part among your citizens could, limit that impact, and also, control the negative impact of AI and also all of its negative aspects.
I mean, that's again sort of like the law enforcement. You take it from many sources. You just don't take one source effectively. You look to verify that information before you take action upon it as well.
And I know we're out of time, but it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
There are some initiatives, for example, in the field of disinformation, non-profit initiatives to work with some fact-checking algorithms. I think this is a good domain to explore by governments, in order to, if it becomes valuable and productive, at the end of the day, it will become available to your citizens to utilize.
Thank you. Gopal, from your point of view, the sort of a couple of steps that we can make us more resilient to the sort of cyber threats effectively.
I really believe that if you look at nature, which is the oldest surviving species? It's the bacteria and the virus. We are living in a world where we think the biggest is the one who will succeed. We've got to reverse it around. And if you see what is causing them, the bacteria and the virus, to survive longest, it is resilience or adaptability. Therefore, my point about the third level, the ground floor is IQ, second floor is EQ. And mankind has reasonably explored these, and AI will definitely enhance them. AQ is yet to be discovered. SQ is up in the air. And I would love to see a sandwich, a hamburger approach, where AI conferences deal with AQ and SQ, and SQ and AQ people deal with the realities of what's happening down there. It's a 4-floor casata.
But I think there's bringing us all together is very effective, which we have in this panel here. Dimitri, from your side, on the technical side, just a quick comment.
Just
from you.
3 points, which very fast. First of all, for the private individuals, please don't afraid of new technologies. So 2,000 years of history of the world shows us that actually the new technologies developing the world, and you don't need to afraid it. Everything would be fine, and the cyber security companies will help you to go through that in this digital world. Second point for the governments, please, gentlemen, don't restrict any kind of new technologies. Just, we will do our best to work with you to actually make some kind of good environment, the regulatory frameworks, sandboxes, just to manage it and to not to stop technological development. And the third point of view, it's for law enforcement. Guys, you need to collaborate over the world just to execute all the criminals. In that point, we will be in the better digital future.
No, final point from you. We have the time up sign come up to us, I'm now in trouble.
Yeah. In a few seconds, I think the main differentiator is to understand that AI is autonomous. It makes its own decisions. It's not just a tool. It is a tool that's developing itself and evolving. It is, in a way, alive, if you want. Not yet alive, but in a way, you can see that autonomous abilities for it. Our normal tendencies as humans is to try and control everything. Try to control something that's 10 times smarter than you. I think the only way you can try to get your children, who are always smarter than us, the only way you can get your children to behave ethically is to teach them ethics. It's not to lock them in their rooms, it's not to handcuff them. The only way for us to make AI better, I think, for humanity in the future is to focus on ethics, not control, but ethics.
So I'd just like to thank all our panelists here, and also for your time sitting here listening to us. I think we probably have more questions and answers through this panel, and hopefully we've given you some different ideas and thoughts. We're not unfortunately going to have time for questions, but please, we'll be around for this morning, so grab us if you want to ask any further questions or points. I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and thank you to the panelists.
Thank you very much.